The war in Afghanistan is now the longest war in American history. 11 years after 9/11, the enemy the U.S. went there to defeat is coming back, according to the two men who know more about this than anyone, U.S. General John Allen and Afghan President Hamid Karzai. We interviewed both of them, and they were blunt about where the war stands and about an enemy tactic that's killing more and more Americans. We arrived in the Afghan capital just after 4 U.S. soldiers were gunned down by an Afghan policeman who was with them in a firefight. It's what the U.S. military calls an insider attack, when U.S. forces are killed by the Afghans they're training and fighting with. Last month, these attacks were the leading killer of American troops. It's a critical problem for General Allen, whose job is to make sure Afghan security forces take over the fight, so U.S. soldiers can come home.
The story will continue in a moment.
You're in a tough spot right now. Can you explain why the sudden increase in these attacks?
Well, I'm mad as hell about them, to be honest with you. We're going to get after this. It reverberates everywhere across the United States. You know, we're willing to sacrifice a lot for this campaign, but we're not willing to be murdered for it.
At a certain point, if these attacks continue, American people are going to say, we've had enough, right? Why are we training these people if they're murdering us?
Well, that may be, in fact. It may be the voice right now that we're hearing. The key point is for us to understand that the vast majority of the Afghans, and you've lived with them, you understand these people, they're with us in this. They understand right now the severity of this problem and the urgency of what's happening. And there have been Afghans who've been killed trying to save our forces when these attacks have been underway, because that was the only reaction that they could have taken, was to try to save us at the moment of that attack.
Training Afghan troops like these Afghan Special Forces soldiers is the centerpiece of General Allen's mission.
Once they're there, we're going to move.
He's already had to suspend training twice because of the rise in insider attacks, which are threatening America's exit strategy.
Should Americans brace themselves for more attacks? Is this going to continue?
It will. The enemy recognizes this as a vulnerability. You know, in Iraq, the signature weapon system that we hadn't seen before was the IED. We had to adjust to that. Here, I think the signature attack that we're beginning to see is going to be the insider attack.
General Allen has asked Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai to do something to keep enemy elements out of the Afghan army and police.
These attacks are sad. And this is something that I've discussed in detail, something that I bear responsibility for to correct.
We met President Karzai at the presidential palace in Kabul, where he spends most of his time. He rarely ventures beyond these manicured grounds and fortress walls that have housed Afghanistan's leaders for more than 100 years. And with good reason. He survived 4 serious assassination attempts, like this one in southern Afghanistan in 2002, when U.S. Navy SEALs guarding him gunned down his attacker. Now, as his forces take over security, they still face a formidable enemy.
Can you tell Americans what's still at stake in Afghanistan after all these years of war?
The reason for the NATO and American intervention in Afghanistan was terrorism. Terrorism has not gone away. It has increased.
When you say that terrorism has increased, what do you mean exactly?
If terrorism means violence against civilians, if terrorism means violence against our allies, it has increased. It has not abated. It has not gone away.
President Karzai says Afghan intelligence reports to him on the presence of foreign fighters, Arabs, Chechens and others, who are captured and killed on Afghan soil.
Name them Al-Qaeda, name them Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, name them Haqqani, name them Taliban, whatever. They're still there, and they have the ability to continue 10 years on to come and hurt us and kill your troops and kill our troops, kill our civilians. We must then question how come they have returned.
Well, that's a good question. How come?
How come they've returned?
How did that happen?
Something must have gone wrong for that to happen.
One place where things have gone wrong is in the mountains of Kunar in the east of the country, which has become al-Qaeda's base of operations in Afghanistan today. These are enemy fighters and leaders, filmed there by our Afghan cameraman, who visited a number of different enemy camps. We couldn't go ourselves because it's too dangerous for Westerners to travel on their own to Kunar. They told our cameraman that they work side by side with al-Qaeda and share their ideology. One Taliban commander agreed to meet with us in the Afghan capital. He's a specialist in suicide bombings, trained by al-Qaeda. The safest place we could find was the back of a car, and he would only talk if we concealed his identity. As we made our way through the streets, we had to avoid the city's heavy security and keep our cameras hidden from view.
Who's behind the insider attacks, what the Americans call insider attacks, infiltrating the Afghan police and army? Is that you?
These are Taliban attacks. This is part of our new military strategy. We have our people in the Afghan police and the army, and the orders come from the top.
He told us al-Qaeda fighters are rushing to Afghanistan and that he has more than a dozen of them under his command. He also said they've been the driving force that has made the Taliban more lethal on the battlefield.
Are you the only commander with al-Qaeda fighters?
There are many groups that have them. We can't do this without them.
What skills do the al-Qaeda fighters bring?
They are masters of everything. For example, making IEDs, something we don't know how to do. But they are teaching us. They're also master engineers and good with all weapons. When our weapons break, they are the ones who repair them. We can't do this without them.
While the U.S. has been saying for a long time that al-Qaeda in Afghanistan is almost defeated, the U.S. military's own reports from the battlefield reveal a very different picture. They're rich with detail about al-Qaeda's leaders and operations today, confirming the existence of al-Qaeda training camps and multiple attack cells. Among those they say they've killed are al-Qaeda weapons and explosives experts. In 1 month, the U.S. says it killed more than 25 al-Qaeda leaders and fighters.
Al-Qaeda has come back. Al-Qaeda is a resilient organization. But they're not here in large numbers. But al-Qaeda doesn't have to be anywhere in large numbers.
Right, the numbers are not significant.
No, they're not. They're not significant in a traditional military sense. Al-Qaeda has significance beyond its numbers, frankly. And so for us, our 24-hour-a-day objective is to seek out those al-Qaeda cells, and as we seek them out, to target them and eliminate them. And we're doing that 24 hours a day. We do not want al-Qaeda to feel as though it can put down roots here. That's the key.
A four-star general like Allen is expected to be as much a politician as a warrior. And one of his more sensitive tasks is dealing with the Afghan president, whose relationship with the U.S. has soured in recent years. We found the president frustrated with the ongoing bloodshed.
A lot of innocent people die every day. So the question is, what have we done wrong that they're still able to continue to hurt and damage people? That is, for me, as the President of Afghanistan, the most important question. And that is the question that I've engaged with the United States almost daily.
And are you satisfied with the answers you get from them?
Never, no. Never. That's been one of our difficulties.
Not satisfied, Karzai told us, with the answers he's getting from General Allen.
I have letters from General Allen who says that the security in Afghanistan is a lot better and the people are waiting for improved governance.
Do you agree with him?
No, I don't agree with that.
You tell him that?
Yes, yes.
What does he say?
The security has improved, but not completely.
He doesn't agree with that. He says that's wrong. And he's told you he's not satisfied with the answers he's getting from you. What do you say to that?
Well, I think we have a difference of opinion on that. The security situation isn't perfect around the country. I mean, there are lots of areas that remain insecure, probably is the word. But an awful lot of the population of this country is living in an area where there is vastly improved security from where it was just a few years ago.
They did agree on a few things. Right now, there's no peace process at all with the Taliban. And Pakistan is the problem. Enemy fighters from the Afghan battlefield have enjoyed freedom and sanctuary on Pakistani soil since the beginning of the war.
Ultimately, it's not going to matter what you do if you do not address the critical element of the safe havens that the enemy has inside Pakistan, across the border, in many ways out of your reach.
Well, we're doing a great deal right now. The relationship that we have between ISAF forces and the Pakistani military has improved dramatically.
But it doesn't stop the Pakistanis helping our enemies kill U.S. soldiers.
Well, that's not going to stop immediately, and we've got to work at that. And it's not a solution that can be had ultimately by a military solution. These are policy issues, these are government-to-government issues. I'm not going to be able to wage war in Pakistan. But this is hard. There's a very complex relationship with Pakistan. And we'll work very hard, very closely with the Pakistani military to achieve common objectives. But to some extent, the Pakistani military has been successful in cooperating with us in the last several months with regard to complementary operations on both sides of the border, but much more needs to be done.
Your deadliest enemies on the Afghan battlefield have complete freedom of movement inside Pakistan, with the blessing of the Pakistanis. And every commander that sat in your shoes has had to try and build a relationship and go through the same motions time and time again. And the effect on the battlefield remains exactly the same. American soldiers continue to die because of the support Pakistan gives to America's enemies.
You just stated the truth.
That's got to make you mad.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And within the context of my authorities, we're going to do everything we can to hunt down and kill every one of those Haqqani operatives that we can inside this country. And those other elements that come out of those safe havens that ultimately threaten my troops, threaten the Afghan troops and the Afghan society, the Afghan civilians, and ultimately the Afghan government.
President Karzai blames the U.S. for not confronting Pakistan years ago.
Why has the U.S. failed to address the issue with Pakistan, do you think?
Perhaps politics.
What has been the cost of that?
Heavy for us. Disastrous for us.
Would Afghanistan look completely different today if the issue of sanctuary and safe haven in Pakistan had been dealt with years ago?
Absolutely. Completely different. Much more peaceful, much more progressed, much more stable, and a society that would have been thriving on its own.
Does that make you angry?
Absolutely. Very much. And we have shown it.
Was there much yelling and screaming behind closed doors?
Plenty of that.
Listening to you, I get the feeling that there's a lot of anger towards the United States. There's been bad blood. What went wrong? Why do you feel this way?
I don't feel angry. Afghanistan feels let down.
President Karzai has repeatedly expressed his gratitude for the sacrifices the U.S. has made in his country. But in recent years, he's been outspoken and critical of his American partners.
When Americans hear you criticize the U.S., they think of all the taxpayer money that they have sent to Afghanistan and the American lives that have been lost here. And some question what kind of partner you have been.
So our criticism is not directed at the American people. Our criticism is directed at policies and behavior of those who are representing the United States people, and is in a manner of asking for change and improvement.
General Allen knows that America's combat mission in Afghanistan is drawing to a close. He told us he expects they'll be fighting to the last day of this military campaign, which began with 9/11 and will end, the White House says, 27 months from now.
How do you feel about having a political timetable for your military campaign?
Well, its focus is pretty good. I walk home at night after a day here, and with 27 months on the clock, I ask myself every night whether I've done enough, and some nights I turn around and go back.
I get the feeling, sitting here talking to you, listening to you, that this is not just a job. It's not about the next promotion. You're carrying this campaign in your heart. This matters.
Yes, I am. I came here believing this would be the last job I'd ever have. I don't care about anything beyond this. This is what's important to me. I almost can't remember ever having been anywhere else. This is completely consuming for me. And I'm dedicated 24 hours a day to these magnificent troops, to the Afghans, to this cause, and ultimately to successful completion. This is very personal to me, and I take it very personally.
Go to 60minutesovertime.com to hear Lara Logan discuss what it's like to be face-to-face with the enemy.